What's going on, everybody? My name's Tenebris Infinite, and welcome to episode 1 of getting ready for base building here in Generation Zero. This is going to be a really short series, 3 episodes, where you dudes are going to get some really awesome tips on farming materials, farming resources in general in Generation Zero, some tips and tricks on organizing your inventory and getting kind of the most out of your crafting materials, and just a whole bunch of other tips and tricks along the way in regards to farming. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I've always wanted to cover farming crafting materials here on my channel, but I've never really known how to do it, and I think doing it as a fun little kind of let's play thing will be a fun and unique way to go about this that will also wind up being really helpful for you dudes in the long run. So for today, we're going to be gathering steel, adhesive, plastic, and rubber. These 4 resources are the easiest resources to gather in the game, but we've got a little bit of house cleaning to do first. So we're going to be starting off here with some tips and tricks on how to organize your crafting materials, get the most out of your crafting material storage here, and then also how to utilize a mule profile character. So first things first, let's take a look inside of my recycling station here and take a look at my crafting resources and how I lay out my recycling station, because this is incredibly important. These are the resources that you have on hand, the resources that are readily available to you probably during base building. So more than likely, you're going to want to have a decent amount of all of the crafting resources that you could gather in the game. Now, in order to have maximum efficiency in your recycling station, you want to have closely 600 of each resource. You can see here that I kind of fell off on certain resources. Some resources I got more of, like rubber, but in the end, you want to have kind of a balance of around 600 resources, because if you have 600 per resource, then you kind of maximize your recycling station's weight, based on also having a good balance of every single resource in the game. Now, we're going to use our mule here to stockpile all of the resources out of our recycling station here, just to hold on to them. It's a little bit cumbersome in nature utilizing mules. Basically, you have to drop the resources that are weighing you down to go off and pick up other resources that are going to weigh you down, to then bring them back to the resources that weighed you down in the first place, so that then you can add more resources to the resources that are weighing you down. It's kind of a yo dog moment. Alright, there we go. We have cleaned out our crafting station, and this is the routine that I've had for ages, pretty much ever since crafting was introduced into the game. So then after you're done clearing out your crafting station, you want to come over here and make sure that you're able to access all of your backpacks, because pretty sure soon your mule character is going to be immobilized from doing this too much. So we're going to go around and we're just going to pick up all of these resources here. Alright, so now let's finally get started with the farming and the route I'm going to take you on today, my dudes. So, the main thing that we're going to be farming today are tanks, because tanks actually happen to drop all 4 of the resources that we're looking for. They drop steel, they drop plastic, rubber, and adhesive. So, let's get going. Now, the first tank that I always like to start off my farming session with is a prototype tank just outside of the Asotungan, I'm probably saying that wrong, the Asotungan outpost that is just over here. Its marker is displaced right now, so it just says camp, but it's the safe house just as you come into the farmlands, and it's this little prototype tank that reliably spawns here in this field every single time. Alright. And we got adhesive. Cool. So that tank didn't really have fat loot or anything like that, but I always just like to start with that tank. He's like a free advanced med kit, a little bit of BMG ammo as well, so it's not all a loss. But the next area that we're coming up to is going to be an area that you get a lot of resources from, especially in terms of steel. And definitely, my dudes, as you go through this route, you want to walk as much as possible so that that way you can get into as many kind of skirmishes and fights with machines as possible, so that that way you could just kind of loot them along the way and pick up just some additional resources as you go along. There's a tank just out by where I'm planning on farming, so I think he's asking for it. Let's take down the tank first, and then let's farm through the trenches here. Alright, let's see if he's gonna give us better loot, maybe? Dude, 17 rubber, not bad. Alright, so now that we're off at the trenches and the farmlands, which run just along this way and cut up along over here. They make this kind of L shape right by the airfield. This is a perfect spot for farming a ton of steel. So we're going to go through and we're going to farm all the doggos along this way and all of the downed hunters along this way and see how much steel and adhesive and plastic we come out with at the end of this. Alright, so now that we've gone through the entirety of the trenches, it's only taken a little bit over 10 minutes, maybe closer to 15 minutes to go through the entirety of this, but the rewards are entirely worth it. So outside of the, 6 adhesive and 7 or 16 rubber, something like that we went into this with, we're now walking out with 55 adhesive, 115 steel, just 17 rubber, so we only picked up 1 extra along the way, and 57 plastic. All in all, for 10 to 15 minutes of your time, that is a really great amount of resources for the time invested, just basically based on all of the machines that you get in the area around the trenches. Now, we're coming on over to the airfield in order to look for some tanks, because again, there are reliable tank spawns in this location. Well, that's one way to take down a tank. Jeez. I do happen to be lucky enough here, and it seems like there is a Phoenix Harvester in this area too, which is kind of perfect. Alright, now let's go check out that harvester, and then I'm going to loot up all of these hunters and doggos and stuff like that before we move on to our next spot. And we got ourselves a decent amount of rubber and also an Alex Sarde. I'm going to keep that. Alright, now that we're done with the trenches and the airfield, we're going to come up here to Durboslaten, right by the crater and right by Stora Durbo. In this area, we're going to be hunting tanks because this area is just fantastic for spawning Phoenix and Apocalypse class tanks and harvesters. And off our first tank kill, we got ourselves 25 adhesive. Now, we're going to go around this area just a little bit. The main focus of this is going to kind of smaller areas where the amount of machines or the class of machines is really high. That just leads to much more efficient material farming in general here in Generation 0. So we're going to kind of just look around and see what we could see. There's a couple hot spots in this Durboslaten area. Right by Stora Durbo there is a fantastic one for Phoenix tanks. Coming down here to the crater is another equally good spot for Phoenix tanks, as we can see one over there, and Apocalypse tanks. The next spot we're coming to is the tank with the railgun just right outside of Anil 144 Vidsela. He's just out in this area. And again, he's one of those tanks that is a sure spawn, so you'll be able to fight him every single time. And next up is good old Alvaret Plains. It's been reliable since the beginning for Phoenix tank spawns, and it still is. So this kind of southern area right around here, or I guess kind of eastern area of Alvaret Plains is a fantastic spot for Phoenix tanks and Phoenix harvesters. And even though sometimes it can be a little bit dry in this area, when it's good in Alvaret Plains, it's really dang good. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, the wombo combo of the Elgstudsar and then the PVG, both with just iron sights, it's a weird way to fight, but it's kind of fun at the same time. But here, let's see what we get. Dude, there we go, 43 steel. Pretty decent, man, pretty decent. And over here, we got a harvester of some sort. Man, Alvaret Plains, it never lets you down, my dudes. Now for the next spot on the route, we're coming on over to Halabakan Farm. Over here, there is a reliable harvester spawn, and a lot of times you'll find Phoenix tank spawns in this kind of general area here. So we're going to go through and see what we can kill. And right here is the second last location that we have on this route, which is right beside Villa Hammerness? That's hard to say. But in this little field, in this little kind of farmland area with a ton of hay bales, there is a reliable couple of set spawns for both a Phoenix tank and another Phoenix class machine. Sometimes you'll find even more in this area. It's a pretty spicy spot to come to. Now, the last location here today does require you to own the Alpine Unrest DLC, but it's super cheap and it's absolutely worth it, and if you're playing Generation Zero, you probably want to buy this DLC because Himfell Island is a fantastic location. Not just for its loot, but also for its story and everything else that comes with Alpine Unrest. But anyway, the location that we're focusing on in specific to here today is Tarnbota Scans, and actually just outside of Tarnbota Scans, right here, there is a relay beacon with a harvester that spawns beside it. So let's go on over there and check it out. So there we go, my dudes. Let's go through the spoils that we got from that one run through on the kind of active farming route, and then I'll point out a bunch of those passive farming locations you can hit up. But at the same time, when I point those out, I'll explain why in these videos I'm going to be focusing more on active farming than passive farming. But first off, let's look at the mats. All in all, it was actually a really good run, my dudes. A number of those locations had really good spawns, like especially the camp on the southern coast and stuff. Some really good fights along the way here. But still, some really good counts for our resources. We didn't quite hit the 600 point with any of our resources. Really, we kind of made it halfway with this one run through, but that just means that if we do another run through, then we're going to be well at that 600 point for all 4 of these resources that we were aiming to gather today. And then also along the way, there was titanium and stuff. I normally pass it up, but with the last couple fights, I did wind up picking up 1 set of titanium. But we're going to be focusing on that in a later episode later on this week. So let's go through a number of the passive farming locations that I like to go to in order to just kind of farm without having to fight too much or waste too many resources along the way. So right here at the end of this bridge, there are a number of downed doggos, and then as well off at Moskar. So you can kind of hit up the end of this bridge, then go to Moskar, and then kind of come on out this way, and then hit up the trenches and stuff, and have a really good flow of passive farming just down here in the southern reaches of the map. Then up north here, we have Viskendetsborg. Then after that, we have kind of this centralized area of the farmlands here. Most of the Russian camps around here have a number of downed machines and are fantastic spots to go to for passive looting. But then as well, Boo, after its facelift, is a great spot to go to as well. Then over here on Himfell, I like to come off to the kind of road blockade that is just over by Himsund Briggen, right over here, right by the burning church. This kind of spot right here. Then there's also Turnboda Scans, and as well the little military complex, Diggerhollen Artillery Base, right over here. Now, personally for me, I like to go active with my farming instead of passive, because with passive farming, you have to wait 4 hours for your loot to respawn. And that's an intense amount of time and a huge time sink. So it winds up just being incredibly slow to gather materials that way. It's good to do like maybe 1 or 2 runs of passive farming a week or something like that. But you really want to be focusing on the active farming and going out and hunting machines in order to farm your crafting materials. As of right now, at least. Maybe with base building, we might see some better options in the future. But there we go, my dudes. Steel, adhesive, rubber, and plastic all covered today. Hopefully this will help you dudes with farming. Hopefully you dudes are hyped for base building. And maybe you're going to enjoy this farming series a little bit and get a little bit of a let's play from your boy here. But for now, thank you so much for watching. And I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, peace out, my dudes.